Hello, grown-up giggers. Oh my gosh, I am so excited to see so many of you here right at the top of the hour. I know it is because you want to hear all about April Fool's Olin, my extra special grown-up gig guest for today. She is the founder, blogger, business strategist, all around cute and adorable and fun person behind Blacksburg Belle. And I'm so excited to have her with me here today because she started her life and her career, well, not her life, but she started her career as a social worker. And so I'm going to make you talk all about April, like that transition and what turned you into the person and the person you are today, the career you have today, and we're going to really get an inside look of what it's really like to do the work that you do.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Yay! So I put the link in the chat already. You could find April at blacksburgbelle.com. You could find me at whenigrowupcoach.com. If you don't know who I am, I'm Michelle Ward, and I'm the When I Grow Up coach. And I help creative women get out of their soul-sucking jobs and into work that feels like play. And so this interview series is something I've been doing for about 1.5 years now, and it's really important to me to shine a light on what different career paths are really like instead of all like the shiny and nice things that we all see on the internet. Sometimes we don't know about the stuff beyond it. So that is why I'm here. That's what Grown Up Gigs is. And I love Spreecast, and I do the vast majority of these interviews live because I want to hear from you guys. And I want you to be able to have time to ask your questions. And so please, 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 please don't be shy about using that ask a question feature right underneath the webcams where you see us. As things come up, as you get your questions, put them in there. I'm going to keep my eye on it. And then when there's a natural break in the conversation, I'm going to take the questions as they come up. So don't wait for me to say, now it's time for questions, or don't think that I'm waiting till the last 15 minutes of the hour to get your question. So I want to emphasize that when you have a question, write it down and we'll get to it. And then feel free to use the chat to either comment on whatever it is April and I are talking about, to introduce yourselves. Some of you, I see Amanda and Neela are already saying woohoo and hello. Feel free to put links to your blogs, your sites, your businesses. It is something that is really encouraged here. I'd love everyone to introduce themselves to each other. Another great part of Spreecast is, building that community and getting to know each other. So it's totally encouraged. It's not seen as spam or anything here. So please introduce yourselves and put your links in the chat. And that's all my housekeeping. Perfect, right?
All right.
Perfect. Yay. Okay, so April, the very first question I have to ask every single grown-up gig chat is, what did you want to be when you grew up? If you could think back to little April, what sticks in your head as to what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a teacher. And that's what I always thought. I mean, that was from before I went to school until I got to college and started actually working as a student teacher. So I thought all of that time I was going to be a teacher. And I even would rather go to the teacher supply store and get workbooks and sticker charts and stuff like that than go to the toy store. That's where I would beg my mom to take me, is the teacher supply store.
Oh my God, that's funny. Was your family, did you have teachers in your family? Where did that come from? Do you
No,
know?
I have no idea. I used to line up my stuffed animals. I used to,
Oh my God.
when I would go to my grandparents' house, I would make them do worksheets. One time I had my grandpa write out all the numbers from 1 to 1,000. And when my mom came to pick me up, he was like, I love this girl, but why are you bringing these worksheets over here?
Oh my God, it's hilarious, and I think such a window into obviously what you do now and who you are. And thinking back to even my own childhood, I instead of making my grandparents do worksheets, I would make them watch me put on shows and dance and sing and stuff. So it makes sense. We tortured our family in various ways, both of us.
Yes.
Totally true. So how did that translate? So it's interesting, you didn't turn that into wanting to be like a traditional teacher. You decided once you went to college that it was more psychology based, social work based. Tell me how that happened.
Well, I worked as a student teacher, and I realized that a lot of the kids were kind of falling by the wayside, and there was nothing that I could do about it. There just wasn't time. And the teachers that I was working for, they were like, this just happens. This happens all the time.
Mm,
Kids come to school hungry, they get a breakfast here, they get lunch here, but they're still starving because those are the only two meals they get. Or their parents don't help them with their homework, so they're really far behind. Or this kid in fifth grade doesn't even know how to read. And there was nothing that I could do, and I felt really helpless. And
mm,
then I realized that I enjoyed working with those kids even more than the kids who were getting A pluses and speaking in front of the whole class. I was liking the one-on-one time that I was getting with the kids that had fallen behind to try and help them. And so
mm.
I started to pick up on that, and I started to ask a lot of my
Yeah,
professors, so what should I do about this? Because it doesn't seem
right.
like the right fit for me. And so a lot of them
Mm,
suggested social work. And another
interesting.
reason was that all of the teachers that I worked for when I was student teaching were miserable. They were like, we don't get paid enough, we work long
Uh-huh.
hours, and they were
Uh-huh.
really good. The ones that I worked for were really good at their job. And you couldn't tell that they were miserable all the time, but some days it just was so evident that
Mm,
they didn't get enough respect or appreciation. And parents, I mean, there were parents that used to write them letters like, you should be working longer hours. You have it good because you get to leave school at 3 o'clock. And
right, and you have the summers off. Right, right, right.
yeah, so it just seemed like, okay, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I think I'm going to try the social work route.
Oh, that's so interesting. And this, give us a year. Like, when was this?
This was my junior year of college when I made the definite decision.
Okay, got it. So this was even, sounds like in my, I, I think everyone knows some teachers, but like my sister-in-law is a teacher in elementary school out on Long Island, and now, like with teachers giving their email addresses and parents having that sort of direct access, and teachers having to follow a program that came down from the state, so structured, seems like there was even more for teachers to hate about their jobs. So it sounds like, you knew for yourself you weren't going to be able to make the difference that you wanted to in the lives of these, sounds like, disadvantaged kids by being a teacher, which is so sad, which is really sad.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. So with the help of your professors and other people you were talking to and the teachers that you were working with, you decided, let's switch paths, let's go into social work.
Yes.
Oh, so is that something that you did? So your junior year of college, it's a little scary to like change your focus and your major. Your junior year of college, how did that work, and what degrees did you end up getting?
Well, I got a degree in human development, and that's what
Okay.
I was working on. That's what I went into college with. And then I thought that I was going to switch to the teacher's path. So I was taking both human development classes and teaching classes
Oh,
without being in the early childhood program yet. And
right.
so I guess when I went to college, I was still kind of unsure because I didn't go for early childhood education, which is what I thought I would. So I'm
Mhm.
even thinking when I was applying that I was thinking, I'm not quite sure. So I was doing all of the work for human development and taking the classes to get into the early childhood program and all the base classes so that I would have it covered. So when I made the
Mm.
switch, it wasn't that difficult because I had already taken all of the prerequisites for the human development major. So it wasn't like I was making this huge shift where I was going to have to take all new
Right.
classes and things like that. I just started adding a lot more psychology classes at that point in time.
Smart. Okay. So that's great. It's not like all of a sudden now you have to start college from square one. Which is also just hearing you talk about that path is, I think, such great advice for those who are looking to go back to school in some way, either undergrad or graduate or certificate, but are maybe more Renaissance souls or more creative and don't know exactly what it is they want to do, kind of making things a bit more broad and knowing that you have that elbow room to pivot as needed is so great to hear. So then after that, oh my gosh, I know that you, once you got your master's, right, is when you started like going out in the fields and you were helping people with AIDS and talk a little bit about that time period in your life.
Okay, so I decided I wanted to go to NYU for grad school, which when I told my mom this, you'll probably crack up. She started sobbing because she's like, New York is so scary and dangerous and you can't live there. And no, I'm not going to allow it. And so she made this was my boyfriend at the time. He's now my husband. But she made him call the different police precincts where I was thinking about living and asking the police officers if they would allow their daughters to live alone in that area. So,
oh my God, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. If it makes you feel better, even though I grew up on Long Island and I would come to the city with my mother all the time, when I decided to go to NYU, she said to me, "You're not allowed to ride the subway." And I was like, "Well, how am I supposed to get places?" She goes, "You have to take cabs everywhere. Never get on the subway." And I was like, "Okay, Mom." And then, of course, I would ride the subway everywhere. What I should have said was, if you want to give me $1,000 a month to take cabs everywhere, then that's fine. But like, she had literally at that point had not been on a subway car in like 25 years. And so she had this view of the subway that was so different. So I get it. I get it. It's hilarious. So hilarious.
So I went to NYU because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. I had grown up in Richmond, Virginia, but not in the city, in the suburbs, in the cushy suburbs. And then I went to Virginia Tech undergrad, and it's a small town. Blacksburg is a small, safe town. So I kind of wanted to get out of my comfort zone. And I thought, if I'm going to be a social worker and I'm really going to help the underprivileged, I have to be where they're at. I have to go somewhere like New York. And NYU offered a clinical program that a lot of other programs don't offer. And so they were very therapy focused. And so that's what I wanted to do. So I went to NYU, and they start you off in the field immediately. And when you apply for the social work program, you put what you're the most interested in and the practice that you want, the internship basically that you want, and they give you the exact opposite. I didn't know that at the time, but they give you the exact opposite. So I wanted to work with kids in a school, and they gave me homeless adults who have HIV or AIDS. So they want to get you completely out of your comfort zone. I don't know. That's just what they decided to do. So I'm working in the Bronx mainly, some in Brooklyn, but mainly in the Bronx with adults who have HIV or AIDS. Most of them have some sort of drug addiction, and we're trying to get them into housing, which housing in New York City is already impossible. So this was like the most impossible job ever of all time. But I learned so much from it. And I'm glad that I had the experience. I'm really glad that I had that experience. Then the second year, you get what you actually want. So they put me in school.
I was wondering that. I was like, do they always keep you away from what you want? I was like, damn NYU, man. You know, and they're not cheap to spend that year doing what you don't want to be doing. But it's great to hear that feedback. We don't have to send them angry letters to be like,
no,
why did you don't. What you wanted?
So the second year, I worked in a school in Brooklyn, and I was basically providing therapy to kids in the middle high school range. And I did some group therapy programs there, some art therapy kind of stuff. And then when I graduated, I still wanted to work with kids in some capacity. And so the first job I got was in the Bronx, and it was working with kids who their parents would bring them to the court system there and say, I don't want them anymore. they're driving me insane, or or I'm scared of them, or they have some sort of mental illness that I don't know how to deal with, and I don't want them. And the court says, too bad, you still have to have them. So that's when they come to me. So then I help the families deal with whatever the issues were going on. And a lot of times there was a lot of crisis happening. So we would work with the families for about 4 to 8 weeks and get them all of the services that they needed so that they didn't feel like they couldn't deal with parenthood anymore. So whether that was somebody coming to their house, a therapist coming to their house every single day, or whatever it was that they needed so that they could raise their kids and feel good about it. And or they were bringing them to the court because they wanted to punish them for something that courts don't punish kids for. It was really crazy. One mom brought her kid because he was eating all of the food in the house, and she hates that he ate all of the good food. She goes, can you believe that he eats my shrimp for lunch? Who eats shrimp for lunch? And that's the craziest story that I have. Is a mom bringing a teen boy because he was eating her shrimp for lunch. But a lot of the families were just in this place of trauma, crisis. I just don't know what to do anymore. I just want help. A lot of the parents were saying, I just need some sort of support and help. And I stayed at that job for about a year. It wasn't my dream job. I wanted to be working more one-on-one and doing a lot more of the counseling work. So then I found another job after about a year, and I was doing the work that I thought, this is what I'm made for. This is what I love. I finally found it. And I was working with teens, and they were dual diagnosis. So they had some sort of mental health problem and substance abuse problem. So it might be depression and they are addicted to Xanax. Or it could be anxiety and they smoke pot every day. Or they have bipolar disorder and they're addicted to Percocet. There were lots of different pairings, but they all had some sort of mental health issue and some sort of substance abuse problem. And I ran a lot of group counseling sessions, and then I worked with families. So I would work with the teens one-on-one, and then at least once a month, but usually twice a month, we would bring in the whole family and I would do a counseling session with them.
Okay.
So that's like my social work career from A to Z.
Thank you. It's so interesting. And so when you finally got to the place of like, yes, I'm in my dream job, or what you sounds like from that junior year in college to this point, it seems like you had that in your mind of what you were working towards, what your dream job was going to be, and now you're here. And I'm expecting you're about to tell me that like things were not as dreamy as you thought they were going to be.
Right. Well, I enjoyed the job. I really did. The problem is that I had a very hard time leaving work at work. I had an exceptionally hard time. And if you're going to be a really good therapist, you have to be able to leave it at the job and go home and take care of yourself. And I just couldn't. I mean, I was waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning, calling my clients to make sure they were getting out of bed to go to school. And I was so nervous every day when I would arrive at work that I was going to have a call that one of my kids was in the hospital, one of my kids had been picked up by the cops, one of my kids had gotten suspended. And those were normal days. Those weren't like, this only happens every once in a while. And so
those are the kind of kids you were dealing with, and their families too. It seems like it's not only them, it's a trickle down.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And even though I really enjoyed the work, I really enjoyed the group counseling, I really enjoyed the individual counseling, I came home every night so drained that the most I could do was sit in front of the TV like a zombie. That's the most I could possibly do. And so I started thinking about, is this going to be my life forever, where I can't, like, I don't have the capacity to do anything else? And my husband, my fiance at the time, my husband now, would say, what about when we have our own family? How are you going to be able to balance that? Is that something that you're going to be able to do? And the answer was absolutely not. And I was trying my best to do things for myself. Like I learned how to cook. I never knew how to cook, and I thought this could be fun. So I would watch the Food Network, and then I would learn new recipes, and that would help me some, but I just still couldn't let go of it. So then I started journaling, and I started making jewelry, and I started scrapbooking and doing all of these things to try and get myself out of that. I'm thinking about these kids every second and worried about them every second. But I just kept becoming more and more drained. And I would come home and I would cry for hours. And I thought, this is not normal to come home and cry for hours. And I would talk to the people that I worked with, and they were dealing with it so much better than I was. They were able to not always leave work at work, but for the most part, leave work at work. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't get these kids out of my mind, their stories out of my mind. It was really challenging for me. So even though I enjoyed the job, it wasn't a good fit for me personally.
Can you talk a little bit about being in that space of just, I want to say drained, but I know that's an understatement. It sounds like it was emotionally draining, energy draining, soul draining, not only because you were so connected and sympathetic to the kids that you worked with, but because too, I could imagine that like this was your dream job, and now all of a sudden you probably realize I need a new dream. And I know just even that realization is so emotionally draining. How you found the time, and I'm putting that in quotes because I kind of feel like finding the time is bullshit. But how you found the time to start exploring your creativity or these new hobbies or doing those things, because I get this a lot from my clients and people who talk to me online, that they go, no, but I can't, I'm so tired, I'm so drained when I come home from work, I don't have any time, and I can't, and even if I did, like I wouldn't be able to wrap my head around it. Any thoughts on how you dipped your toe into that?
Sure. Yeah, you even saying that started to bring tears to my eyes, because I remember how devastated I was when I thought, even though I really enjoy this work, I can't do this forever. This isn't the right thing. This isn't the way I envisioned my life to be. And I would cry for hours, day after day after day. My fiance would be sitting on the couch with me, trying to help me, comfort me in some way, completely at a loss. Thank goodness he was so supportive of me, because he really started to say to me, you need to start to figure out other things that might be a better fit for you. And he was giving me permission that I wasn't giving myself, because I would say to him, we spent $150,000 for my education that I'm no longer going to use. And I spent all of these years going to college, and I'm not going to use this. I can't possibly even think of that. And for a while, I couldn't. There were months where I just couldn't think that there was going to be another option, that I was going to have to figure out how to make this work. And it just, the more he gave me permission, the more I started to give myself permission. He's like, I don't care about the $150,000. I care about you being happy. I care about you loving.
Oh, what a good guy.
Yeah, he's such a good guy. He's amazing. And so I started to give myself permission. And I thought about the things that I really love doing. And one of the things that I have always loved since childhood is writing. So in the teaching part, I used to write stories. I used to ask my stuffed animals to write stories. I used to ask my grandparents to write stories. And it's something that I always did. And it's what I really enjoyed in high school. All of the papers I really enjoyed. In grad school, I excelled because everything was written, basically. I mean, it wasn't multiple choice tests. It was This is the situation. Write an entire paper about it. Write a 10-page paper about it. And I excelled. I had a 3.99 GPA. It was something that I've always enjoyed doing is writing. So I thought, let me get back to that. And instead of waiting until I got home at night, because I knew that I couldn't really wrap my mind around writing when I would get home, I woke up early. I would set my alarm for 4:30 or 5 in the morning. Yes, every day.
What? Are you a morning person?
No. Now I get
That's
up.
commitment. See, that is making the time. And that is why I put finding the time in quotes, because no one's going to find any time anywhere. You have to make the time by setting your alarm and giving yourself that time early. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I just had to do it. There was just no other option. If I was going to write, I knew it had to be in the morning when I was focused and fresh. And I started enjoying it so much that I would look forward to it. Of course, there were mornings when my alarm clock would go off at 4:30 and I would think, oh my God, it's freezing outside. It's a New York morning. I don't want to get out of bed. I want to cuddle in my sheets. And what I would do is I would remind myself how happy writing makes me. And I would also remind myself of what it would be like if I got to do that full time every day, if I could wake up whenever I felt like it and do the work that I love, that made me happy, that made me fulfilled, that gave me energy instead of depleting me, what that would be like. And I held on to that so tight, especially when my alarm clock would go off early in the morning. And so that's just how I made the time. And I did it practically every day. Even on Thanksgiving, I remember setting my alarm clock for 4 o'clock in the morning because at that point I had gotten some freelance writing jobs and I wanted to meet my deadlines. And so I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to write and get this stuff done and turned in. Everybody else is sleeping and I'm like, everyone else is sleeping, but I was doing something that I enjoyed.
Wait, so you got the freelance writing gigs and you were writing while you were still in this job?
Yeah.
How did that happen? Ooh, I want to know, how did that happen?
I just started researching where I could get paid for writing and what I could do. And I just started finding all of these freelance writing jobs and I would apply for them and I would get them. And so the more I got, the more experience I had that I could point to and the more I would get. And so it was practically, at one point, it was practically everything I was applying for I was getting. And so it was just about making the time to do it.
Oh my God. Did you, at that point, to get those jobs, did you set up a website? Did you have a portfolio? Like, what did you submit at that point to show what a great writer you are?
Okay, so I believe what I did, well, first of all, I started a blog, and it was not Blacksburg Belle. It was a wedding planning blog because I was planning my wedding, and I thought, I'm coming up with all of these awesome ideas. I'm doing these DIY projects, and I could only put in my wedding about 95% of the ideas that I really liked, or no, 5%, not 95.
Okay.
95% I couldn't do anything with because you only get one wedding cake, you only get one first dance, you usually only have one wedding dress. Some people have 3 or 4, but so I was coming across all of these awesome ideas and I thought if there are other brides that have my style, they'd probably like this too. So I started a blog about weddings and that readership was growing and growing, so I could point to that. Then I also started writing for, I can't even remember the name of the website right now, but it was a website that you get paid practically nothing. I mean, it's like you get paid per clicks on the articles.
Right.
And I started writing there because then I would have samples to show. So I wrote a handful of articles for that website, knowing that I wasn't going to get paid anything for it. And I did it because I wanted to have these samples to show. So that's what I did. Those were the 2 things that I could point to for people to see my writing. And the samples that I wrote for this other website were on topics that pertain to social work. So like depression, anxiety, dealing with those things, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so I have to say two things. Number one, I have to say that if you guys have questions, I'm serious about putting them in, and we will break when they come up and talk to them. So we're halfway through the interview, so don't be shy because I always make time for your questions. That's number one. Number two, I just I'm so glad to hear this answer, and I asked you this question, I think because oftentimes we get into our own heads as to like how professional we need to be and how ready we need to be, and we can't approach these editors or apply to these jobs unless we have, you know, the perfect website or all these samples or things that are so on point with what we're applying for. So hearing you say you were writing the mental health stuff, that you were able to obviously use your education experience, still passionate about it, but at the same time you had a wedding planning blog, was still applicable, still got you those writing jobs, even if it wasn't about wedding planning, didn't make you look like you didn't know what you were talking about with the social work stuff. I think that's so great because it was about you, especially during the time when you were in this job and so unhappy. It seems like that wedding planning blog was like what really kind of brought you out of that, what made you happy, what you wanted to be writing. And then you knew, okay, the freelance gigs could be not about wedding planning, and I could still get those jobs by showing them my wedding planning site. I don't have to hide it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just love that.
Yeah. And if there was a specific topic that I knew that I wanted to get for this other website, you could write about so many different things that I was just getting paid like pennies for, that I would write up a sample that would work for that person that I was going to apply for. So then I could also cover a different topic and say, hey, here's a sample of this topic, and I know you're looking for something similar.
Okay, so if I got this right, at this point, you're in this job that you're not happy with. You have your wedding planning blog. You have these freelance gigs and these other writing samples that you're doing. It sounds too like you're still doing your, you know, cooking and whatever journaling, whatever creative stuff on the side. When does it come together? When's the point where you say, I'm leaving this job to go write?
Okay, so I had something that a lot of people don't experience, that I needed to make a big decision because we were moving. So we were moving from New York to Virginia, and I needed to decide, am I going to find another job in the social work realm, or am I going to try this full time? So I had something pushing me that was, this is an absolute deadline of finding a new job, so it's just what job am I going to pick? And my husband and I knew that we were moving back to Virginia for a while, so we had some time to do financial planning, to get money in the bank, to make sure that we were covered. And so that was a little bit of a safety net there that we built up. And we knew ahead of time, which was really nice, because he was graduating from law school. We knew that we wanted to move back to Virginia, that we wanted to live closer to family. And so he was applying to jobs in Blacksburg and Richmond. So I knew I was going to be living in one of those areas. So it was just, am I going to start looking for social work jobs in one of those areas, or am I going to try doing this stuff full time? And he said, listen, we've got the financial nets. Just try it. If it doesn't work, give yourself a year. If it doesn't work, you can figure something else out. You can go back to a social work job that would be a better fit for you.
Right. Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing, and I get asked sometimes about how important like outside support is to making that sort of transition and doing what you love. And I never want to say that you can't do it if you don't have supportive people, because obviously people have, and it's all about internally what's inside of you and your motivation. But when you have that sort of encouragement and support and love coming at you from the people that count, it just makes it so much easier. It makes it so much easier to have in your corner.
Yes. Yes. And my
Mm-hmm.
parents were like, my mom was kind of like, I know you can do whatever you want to do, is what she said to me. So sure, sounds
Mm-hmm.
okay. But she was a little bit skeptical that, I'd gone to school for this. I had been working in this field, and now I was thinking about doing something completely different. Thankfully, she was also very supportive, but I could tell, she didn't say, like, I don't know if this is going to work, but I could tell that she was thinking, like, I don't know if this is going to work.
See, and your protective mom or overprotective mom, and again, I have one too. Um, like that concern is there because they want to make sure that you're safe and your life is easy and like you're embarking on the hard decision. It would be the easy decision to say yes, let's go move back to Virginia and I'll go find a job in the schools or in the courts or in the government or and do something like that's the easy thing. You're picking the hard thing, which is a more creative life, entrepreneurial life. That's scary, I think, to the people that love us and have a more traditional way of thinking about careers.
Yeah,
For
for
sure.
sure.
For sure. Lori has a question, and I'm going to put it on the air. Woo. Okay, so Lori says she, not a question, but a social worker who wants to write as well, but student loans loom over my head. And this grown-up gig was right on time. Yay. How did you learn how to pitch, or did you just pitch on your own? So I
Okay.
think this question could apply to like those freelance jobs you got at the beginning and then throughout your career. I mean, I know you've written in so many different places and have gotten so many, speaking gigs and teaching gigs and stuff.
Okay, so how did I learn how to make those pitches for those writing jobs? If I'm understanding the question correctly. Okay, so I just started Googling
Cool.
and finding out, and there's like tons of sample pitches online if you just start Googling about how to pitch for these writing jobs. And a lot of times they will specifically say what they want. So I want
Mm,
3 samples of this type of work, this
mm,
length, whatever it is. A lot of times they're very specific about what kind of pitch they want you to make. And you'll find
mm.
that on their website, or usually on their website you can find that information.
Fabulous. Any resources looking back that stand out to you that were particularly helpful in either learning how to pitch or figuring out the samples or where to go?
Yes, there were a couple of books that I read, and this was like 9 years ago. One of them
Mm.
was How to Write for Magazines, or I think I have it up here.
And I love, by the way, that your books are color coordinated.
It's so
It is
fun.
so
It's
it is
so fun.
so nice and like very you.
I I actually don't. Oh yes, it's called Magazine Article Writing, and I can actually.
Sweet. You could get. Oh my gosh, you're so multi-talented.
Okay, so this was a really good one for
Great.
me. And
Tons
not
of
just for
resources for
magazines,
writing.
but also for writing in general, for making the same types of pitches online. And I'm assuming that this may have updates to it. I don't know. This was, see if I can find the copyright. Okay, this was 2005. So a lot of the information I think is still applicable to it. I really liked the different sections that it has in here, like querying, selling reprints and rewrites, finding markets, interviewing, writing techniques and revision, how to write common articles. All of those things would still be applicable today. So this book I really liked a lot. And there was another one
Yay.
that was, I can't remember the name of the title for it, but I can look it up. And when you post this, I can probably give you the title of that book. But it was something
Fabulous.
like how to make money freelancing, something
Great.
general like that.
Fabulous. And I just want everyone to know that my wonderful producer, Arwen, just put the link to the book on Amazon in the chat if anyone is interested. Yay! And Amanda has a question, which is, I like this question. How did you work through the pressure to succeed? I think that's been part of my self-sabotage as I get stressed about it needing to work, and I don't want it to come from a place of stress.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing was having a little bit of a financial cushion. I knew I didn't have to do it right away. I knew that I didn't have to make that money and succeed the exact second that I stopped working. So that was really helpful for me because it took a little bit for me to figure out how to be my own boss because I had never worked for myself before. And so that was a little bit difficult for me was figuring that out and keeping myself focused all day and doing the work that needed to get done. Another thing that I did was I found jobs that were consistent that I knew would be bringing in money. And then with my other time, I could find the stuff that I was even more excited about and work on that, which mostly was my wedding planning blog at the time. That was more exciting for me. And so I would do the work that I knew was bringing in the money that I still enjoyed, but it wasn't the first thing that I was excited to do that day when I woke up.
Right. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. It seems like there's, and I work on this with my clients all the time, and that was part of my effective escape also from my day job is like you have to have kind of a short-term piece of like what's giving me the money now, or whatever else, the benefits, the health insurance, whatever it is that you need to feel comfortable as an adult to provide for yourself and your family as you need to. That's the short term thing. But then long term, you're looking at, okay, how do I transition out of this? And so that's the question that, and what you need to be working on as your side hustle, as people like to say.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure. The questions are coming on in right now. Tess asks, when you were working on your blog, did you actively try to grow it, meaning using all the optimization for search engines, or just mainly having awesome content?
That's a great question. So when I first started it, it was really just a hobby project. I didn't think I'm going to make any money from this. It was really just because I was enjoying it so much. I wanted an outlet for my writing and for collecting all of these ideas that I was coming across. And when I started thinking about I'm going to leave my day job, that's when I started thinking, okay, is there a way that this could be making some sort of money for me as well? And at that time, I got my first email asking, could we put an ad on your sidebar? We sell flowers for weddings, and we would love to advertise on your site. And this was back when, this was 7 years ago. This was a while ago. And so this wasn't the norm. There weren't ads on most blogs. It wasn't something that you saw all the time. I didn't even realize it was an option. And so when I got this email, I thought, oh, what? Somebody wants to pay me to put an ad on my sidebar? Are you crazy?
That's the best feeling, right?
Yeah. And so I said, I checked out their business. I thought this would be a great fit. Okay. I had no idea what to charge them. So I decided, how about $75 for 3 months? That's what I came up with. And they said, all right, absolutely. And so I thought, okay, next person who asks me, it's going to be more because they said, yes, absolutely.
I love that frame of thinking. I love that. That's such a great way to price your stuff.
Yeah. I had no idea what I was doing.
Bare bones, like pick what feels good for you, and if they say yes and agree to it right away, then you know you're probably charging a little too less. The next person gets more. And just keep going up and up until you feel that hesitation or hear that no all the time.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah. I had no idea what I was doing. So then I started getting more and more requests. And I thought, okay, this could be a way to bring in some money for this project. And I had a bunch of advertisers. I grew my readership into the thousands because I was posting every day. And so an advertising model doesn't work for a lot of creative entrepreneurs because they want to be selling their jewelry or they want to be selling their art or whatever it is. And I knew when I switched over to Blacksburg Belle, that wouldn't be the the way that I made money through it. But at that point in time, I thought, this works, this is cool. And it was really new to me. So testing that out, I did sponsored posts, but I never, like, I didn't even know what SEO was. I don't even know if that was a big thing that a lot of people were talking about back then, but I had no idea what it was. I wasn't focused on that. I was just focused on putting up the stuff that I really liked and enjoyed.
So it kind of sounds like, I don't want to say if you build it, they will come. Like, you built it and they came. It wasn't that simple. You built it, you worked on it every day. You worked on it every day.
For months.
So there was something up for months and months, but it didn't sound like you were actively commenting on other people's blogs or, trying to advertising on other sites or anything like that to get the eyeballs. It was just people were finding their way to you because you had so much content eventually, it sounds like, and were so consistent with your blogging.
And I was trying to come up with content ideas that I thought would also be really popular. When I decided I needed to make this more than a hobby, so one of my most popular posts was 101 DIY projects for your wedding. And that took my readership from hundreds a day to thousands a day, that one post. And so then I started coming up with more posts that I thought would be the most popular and that I enjoyed writing. So these were 101 DIY posts that I just posted links to other people's DIY projects and categorized them really nicely. That post took me a while, a few days to really come up with. But I started thinking about content that would also be really popular and successful. However, I wasn't even on any social media. Like, I hadn't joined Facebook. There was no Twitter. I think Facebook might have even just been for college kids at that time.
Right.
There wasn't any of these options.
Yeah, 7 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was more about really focusing on the content. And there wasn't as much competition as there is today, too.
It was a different landscape, but it sounds like you didn't specifically come up with that idea for the SEO or optimized it for SEO. You just realized, oh, the DIY weddings was probably a popular Google term at the time. I'm sure it still is. And that just brought in, if I do 101 things, and I'm sure the outbound links helped things. Like, it's a natural way to boost that SEO.
Yes, I had a ton of people that linked to that post.
Love it. And on the same level here of what we're talking about, Rebecca's asking, how do you monetize blogs? She's working on building a photography business, but in the grand scheme, I'd like to build a passive income online to support other creative entrepreneurs. Cool. So how do blogs generate income? You talked about the advertising.
Okay.
What else?
Okay, so I often don't recommend advertising because it takes people away from your site, your products. It's clutter on the sidebar, unless it's going to be your model. I don't think that it's a great model. Most of the creatives that I work with, if they have ads on their sidebars, they don't make them much money. And so it's just not worth it to have.
I could back you up on that. I had ads on my sidebars for over a year, and just a few months ago I was like, no, it didn't work for a number of reasons. So I back up what you're saying 1,000,000% personally.
All right, awesome. So I think if you want to support you should focus on your business, on your photography, on selling your products, your services. However, if you want to support other creatives, there are lots of ways that you can do that just for free. You can interview creatives on your blog. You can feature their work on your blog. There are lots of ways that you can do that, and that's great for relationship building, and that will probably pay you back more than having ads on your sidebar or trying to look at other ways to have that income, because it's just usually not worth it. However, there are certain things that you might think about for more passive income. I don't know for a photographer, but like an ebook is a really great option for passive income. That's your product, that once you make it, it's done. Another thing for a photography business is if you take photos that you sell, not just like you're a wedding photographer or whatever, then you take the photo you put it up, and it's just the packaging that has to go out. So it's not completely passive, but it's not something you're having to perform for every time.
Love it. And I think this is a good place to also mention the exciting class that you were teaching on Creative Live next week. Oh my God, it's next week already, right?
Yes, it is. It's on May 1st, starts on May 1st. It's May 1st, May 2nd, and May 3rd. It's all about building a successful creative blog. So if you're really interested in blogging for your business, this is the course. I've been working on this for months, you guys. I have poured everything that I possibly have into this workshop to make it amazing, because if you give me your time, I want it to be something that you get so much out of that you love it. And if you watch it live, it's free. So that's the really good part. You even get the workbook that is really long and has lots of awesome exercises. So you get that for free. So even if you can't watch for 3 full days, you should RSVP and watch when you can, so that you can also download the workbook so you can go through the exercises.
Yay! Arwen, if you could put the link to April's Creative Live class, that would be amazeballs. And I will make an appearance on Saturday too, talking about my blog tour for the Declaration of You and stuff. So I just want to let you guys know, especially since we only have 10 more minutes or so left here, that April's going to give you 3 days worth of content about building a blog. So like, she's going to cover all of it, and she just very obviously knows her shiz. Oh my God, and I think this is your husband who is commenting right now. Just so cute. And he's asking you, how did you get me on board with Blacksburg Belle? I know that a lot of other husbands, partners of solo online entrepreneurs I meet have difficulties accepting the alternative business plan lifestyle. And then he compliments us on our beauty. He is like such a keeper. I can't even tell you. But it's such a good question, and thank you for bringing this up, Chris. Like, was there magic? Did you like give him a foot massage, or like make a special meal, or get him drunk or something to be like, so let me do this?
No, I think the best thing that I did was I was telling him what I was doing on a daily basis. So we used to go on, I have some health issues, so we don't do this all the time now, but we used to go on daily walks together at the end of the day. And I would tell him what I had worked on. He would tell me what he had worked on. So he saw the progress that I was making on a daily basis. I think that that is the biggest thing that really helped him understand what I was doing, support me in the ways that I needed to be supported, and really get on board with it. And every time I have sales, I tell him. Like, I will text him sometimes. I'll be like, just another sale, woo, woo, woo. And he gets excited. And he knows that it's working because I do that kind of stuff. When he gets home for lunch, I'm like, I had 3 sales for marketing for creatives this morning. All right. And he's like, you're awesome.
See, the proof is in the pudding. You were so right. You were so right. And I think that's what got my husband on board too. When I was getting certified and building my business as I was an executive assistant for almost 3 years, it was like he knew when my clients were coming in, and he was the one. I had an HTML website and he was the developer essentially. So he would say to me, I remember him saying at one point, like, Michelle, when are you raising your rates? Isn't it time to raise your rates? And I said to him, I'm going to raise my rates when you sit your butt down in that chair and update my website like I've been asking you to do for a week. And he's like, oh, that's why you want me to update your website? Oh, I'll do that. He like sat down right there. He's like, oh, we could get more money for your coaching if I update your website. Okay, I'll do it right now. So, it's so funny. And I have, if anyone needs more kind of insight on getting their family on board, I literally just made a how to get your partner or family to get on board with your creative career or entrepreneurial endeavor in 3 easy steps. And that's one of the steps, is like, you need to talk to them. You need to let them know about the progress you're making, because that's tangible proof.
Yeah.
Tangible stuff.
Yeah.
Or what if you could find the link to that blog post too? That could be a really good help. Okay, so considering we only have 5 minutes, I think what I love kind of ending on this question, which is, what would your current self tell the yourself that was in that terrible job that was writing on the side, what kind of advice would you give past April from present April?
I would just tell her it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Everything is going to be all right. It's not as devastating as you think it is. There are other options. I would tell myself there are other options, because that was a big one where when I felt stuck for a very long time, I didn't realize that there was another option for me. And so I would remind myself of that. I would tell myself it's going to be okay. You're going to be happy and you're going to feel really great about the work that you do, and just keep working hard. Keep doing the work that you're doing every day. It's going to pay off.
Yay, I love that. I love it. And since, I'm not going to make that the last question, since we still have 4 more minutes and I want all of the goodness. Knowing that this is an inside look at Dream Job held by real people, is there anything we haven't talked about that you wanted to bring up in terms of what it's really like to do the work that you do? And I know you make your income from a few different revenue streams. So is there just any sort of insight onto like what this work is really like as opposed to what everyone shows us online?
Right. So one of the things is you really have to work hard. You really, really have to work hard. You have to become a master at your craft, at what you do. You have to believe in your products, in your services. I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, well, I want this just because I want some extra money and my products are fine. But no, you have to really believe in them, and you have to do the work, and it's not going to happen overnight. And it never happens overnight for people. It sometimes looks that way. It really can appear that way so often, but if you do the work every day, it will happen. It will. And another piece of advice would be to have different revenue streams, like you brought up. It's so helpful to have different sources of income for me coming into my business, because there are slower times for different things. And I usually do just a couple of big launches each year for a certain course or product. And so it's also nice that I have a couple of other products that are constantly bringing in income, like my Marketing for Creatives book. I have another product that is 365 blogging and writing prompts, and that one brings in income on a regular basis. So it's nice to have those that are happening in the background while I am making money for the big launches. And when I do make the money for the big launches, I know that that's going to have to last for however many months until the next one. So also financial planning, I think, is really important, because it's awesome when you have like a $10,000 payday, but if that has to last you, 3 months, then you have to kind of plan that out.
I also have to point out that I think the answers to the last 2 questions that you gave fit in really well with that question of not working from a place of stress. So it sounds like, being proactive, reminding yourself that there are choices, not kind of waiting for things to happen, to know nothing happens overnight, to just keep working and noticing your work and getting those tangible results. Like that's what it is.
And
that's how you.
My last tip would be to write down your progress each day. Write down the things that you did to work on your business that day, so that you can look over all of the progress that you've made. So when you're having one of those crappy days where you feel like things haven't happened, you can look at everything that you've done over the past month and see how much progress you really have made.
Yay, I so agree with that, and I would want to add that everything counts. Even if the only thing you were able to do that day for your business was to tweet for 10 minutes, or, write one new blog post, or half a blog post, or a blog post outline, like, it all counts. All counts. Okay, last question before we wrap up. I want to bring Amanda's question in, and then no more questions, and we'll wrap up. She said, I know you spent last year blogging almost daily. Do you recommend that for someone trying to get out there, or do you think I should start with 1 to 2 a week?
I think you should do what is realistic for your situation. So last year, I set this crazy goal for myself. One, because I wanted to share a lot of different content that I was posting on a weekly basis, and every Wednesday post was about improving your creative business. And so I wanted to include recipes and DIY projects and things that I knew that my target market was interested in, because I work with creatives. So I knew they would be interested in this kind of stuff. So I thought, okay, I really need to set a goal or it's probably not going to happen. So I decided I was going to blog every day or practically every day for a year and see how it worked for me. I'm not doing that now. I blog once a week, and then sometimes I post extra posts when I have the time, when I have the opportunity, the chance. And I still share some of those things like photography and recipes and stuff like that. So I would say do what's right for your business, because most of the time your business isn't your blog. Your blog supports your business. So you should be working on your business the majority of the time and then use your blog to support it. And that means different things for different people based on your business model.
Thank you for that reminder. I think it's really, really, really hard to make that differentiation sometimes, and we like to pretend that our blog is our business. But if our blog is not our business, then it needs to be a tool to support our business, not what we spend all of our time on. So hopefully everyone knows that on distinction for themselves.
Absolutely.
April, thank you for being here, and thank all you guys for being here live and being so active and asking questions. Go to blacksburgbelle.com. Go just RSVP for April's class for the Creative Live. Again, the link is in the chat, but it's called Writing Successful. What is the course called again? You can just look for your name, right?
Yes, build a successful creative blog. So if you're just going to creativelive.com, you want to click on Maker and Craft, and I think it's the first one that you click on in RSVP. But you can also find the links at blacksburgbelle.com.
Oh, perfect, perfect, perfect. And seriously, just RSVP because it's free and there's no reason not to. And there's just going to be a ton of fantastic content. I can't wait to be there and join you. And thank you guys for following my stuff. The next Grown Up Gigs Live is going to be Make Schwalf with Jennifer Lee, who's the writer of The Right Brain Business Plan and the new book, Building Your Right Brain Business. And so if you go to whenIgrowupcoach.com/GUG, or just hit Grown Up Gigs in the nav bar, you'll find all of my past interviews that I've done and posted to my site so far, and everything that's coming up. So April, you're wonderful. Everyone else here is wonderful too. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great, great day and a wonderful weekend.
Yes, thank you
everyone
so much. Bye.
Thank you.